Sonic Truth returns. We're going to be talking some Dynasty guys. It is peak season right before the NFL draft, and every year it seems like there are buying opportunities. I know we use the term buy low, but sometimes it just opens the door on players that weren't previously available for anything of a fair rate. So today, let's talk about some distressed assets, both historically and currently, Theo Gremminger. So Rashee Rice. I mean, anytime someone is involved with off-the-field stuff, I know we don't know much at this point, but is there a buying opportunity? Not necessarily a buy low, but a buy at market price for him. Have you seen?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's every single league, but there's certain leagues where people are very risk-averse, and they're trying to get out of the situation. I personally am buying Allen. I've only been able to trade for one Rashee Rice, but I stole him. In a high stakes FFPC single QB league, I sent the 209 and a 2025 third. So even if he's suspended half the season, I think that's a win for me. It's just funny how we're talking about, I'm not sure if it was you, Alan, but somebody made a Rashee Rice end of rookie season was a comparable path to like Amon-Ra St. Brown end of his rookie season, their ascension. And we certainly have it reflected in the Dynasty rankings at PlayerProfiler. But I personally think if people are selling him right now, it's very short-sighted unless you're getting like the 105, 106 in single QB leagues. This is a guy that was getting treated as a fringe wide receiver one on Underdog already. Showed us big-time talent, was excellent in the second half of the season, now has an off-the-field issue, and to panic is just not the right way to play Dynasty. Scared money doesn't make money. Isn't that right, Matt?
Podfather, do you know where he's currently ranked in consensus rankings? Like if you use one of the trade sites, like I'm not talking about the player. Yeah, keep trade cut. Just take a guess. He's wide receiver what right now over the last 5 days since the event?
Wide receiver 21.
He's wide receiver 30 right now.
Oh,
below Brian Thomas, Deebo Samuel, Jaden Reed, Jackson Smith, and Jigba.
Deebo Samuel.
Below him.
Deebo Samuel has risk in and of itself. Deebo Samuel has age risk. Deebo Samuel has injury risk. He's the most injury-prone wide receiver in the league because he's the most susceptible to big, hard running back type collisions, the way they use him. So pick your risk, man. I'd rather take a risk on Rashee Rice. Theo, explain the mechanics of that trade. How did you get that trade done?
That's because that would happen in any league.
The guy, and I see a couple of big time FFPC people in the chat. Shout out to Austin R. Martin. Nice to see Austin live in the Sonic Truth chat. Austin's probably the best Dynasty player in the world right now at the high stakes level. And Austin saying nobody gets gifts like that. Hey, Austin, it pays this time of year to be looking at your league messages and the emails come in. A guy says he's interested in trading Rashee Rice. Said he'd be interested in, maybe 2 seconds. I throw out a second and a third. Miracles happen, Matt. You get, good things happen when you're active in your trade market in dynasty leagues. I don't think that's reflective, but I do think that this is a guy, Rashee Rice, where in single quarterback valuation before the incident, the 105 was probably what you had to give up. I think that he's not quite in the Bowers, Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors level for his value. But I think he was worth more than the Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, Caleb Williams, pick your RB level guys. Now I think that that's sort of flipped. I think that in most leagues, you're going to have to give up maybe like the 110 in single QBs, maybe like the 112 in a super flex. But I do think that gets the conversation started on Rashee Rice for some managers now, just because of the question marks kind of hanging above his head.
Did you submit the first offer or did you receive an offer?
Oh, I submitted the first one. Bam, bam. It was accepted. I had a couple guys sending me messages, multiple guys in the league sending me messages saying I would have traded more. I'm really surprised he accepted it right away. But the guy got out from under, in his mind, a risky asset. And guys, listen, shoot or shoot. Allen, shoot or shoot.
Yeah, no, in a couple leagues I'm in, Podfather, we have the trade match rule where once a trade goes up on the board, everyone else has 24 hours to beat or match the trade. Do you like a rule like that, or is that a little bit more two training wheels, do you think? That's the critique of it, that, hey,
that's
everyone's
fun.
on their Yeah, that's what I like because everyone can
Well,
bid
doesn't
on
it
the
create more
trade.
engagement?
Yes.
Doesn't it create less tension and stress because no one's upset that someone was fleeced in a trade because everyone had the opportunity to up it?
So
Exactly.
you guys want like auction trades? That's like an auction trade. So like basically, I say something's
cool.
for sale, and I end up having to take the best offer.
No, how it works is very quickly is let's say that your trade executed, right? It goes up on the board, Rashee Rice for a second and a third. Now, all the other managers have 24 hours to negotiate with the two managers in order to get a big deal. No, nothing can change on the other side. Rashee Rice is here, the second and third is here. Now, you could accept one offer. Say someone offers you the 109 for him. You could say, I accept that one, and that one goes through. The original manager has got one more chance to top that. And then we move on.
There is a 24-hour public pending period.
There you go. That's a great way to say it.
That is what it is, Theo. Now, Theo would not like this. You can see Theo's brow furrowing. Theo does not like this. You know why?
Like
because Theo is a grinder. Theo wakes up in the morning, pounds a cup of coffee, looks at the news, and if there's anything that's actionable, bam, 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 offers are flying out, and he gets rewarded. Right? The dog that's hunting is the one that's going to get the bring back the bird, bring back the grouse. The dog that's just laying on the couch is never going to get the bird. Okay? Theo's a bird dog. Okay, that's the thing. He's bird dogging trades. That's what he's doing. And so if you say, hey, we're going to actually nullify all my hard work and essentially make me the one sniffing out the owners that are willing to deal, and then the rest of the league is to benefit from me flushing the birds out from the bushes, well, fuck that. So the argument would be that there's a disincentive for anyone to actually initiate trade talks because then they're just going to be subverted by other league mates.
But you can come over the top. One second, Theo. You can come over the top. Like say I beat Theo's trade. Like I offered the 111, and the guy said, "Okay, I want Allen's deal." Theo's got one chance, uncontested, to come over the top of me. So the original owner, the reward for initiating the trade is you get the final say. You could say, "Okay, I have the 112, but I'll give you the 112 and a third." So basically, yes, you were right, Matt Kelly, that it hurts the one guy who's, quote, initiating these trades maybe, but it's better for the overall health of the league, and that's what's important.
Alan, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say your suggestion is a little bit anti-capitalism. Can we go there? Can we go there? It's a little, I don't know. It's a little questionable.
It might have a chilling effect on transactions in that what you're doing is you're essentially incenting all league members to not submit final offers or accept trades. Wait until your league mates accept a trade, and then you can choose to go over the top or not. But if everyone is waiting for everyone else to accept a trade, then no trades will be accepted. That is the potential consequence, the hidden cost of that type of policy.
Yeah. For the most part, though, what it does is when you're trading Boston Scott for a 4th-round pick because he gets a spot start, that no one challenges that trade, right? For the most part, it's when the superstars, the top 24 players in Dynasty, top 30 players in Dynasty get traded, it ensures, because in a perfect world, if you're trading Sam Laporta, you say to the league, hey, I'm trading Sam Laporta, send your best offer. But that doesn't always happen. How many times have you been in a league where a big star gets traded, Theo Gremminger, and someone's like, oh, I would have given you more for that? Well, this is your opportunity. And again, it's not going to work in the FFPC, so to speak, but in a home league with serious players, this does protect the long-term viability of the league, in my judgment.
Serious players are the ones making trade offers and being proactive, looking to get guys, not saying, oh, the computer let me know that this guy's on the trade block, and I see kind of what this manager is willing to accept, and his bottom line for this guy. I'm going to see if I can't go over the top of him. Basically, one person's going to do the work, and then this other person kind of benefits from it. I don't think it's a very good idea at all. And I think a healthy league is a league where you have 12 active managers who are continually trying to get their team better. And that if that's a redraft league, that it's 12 managers trying to win the league. And if it's a dynasty league, It's knowing what your team is, if you're going for it and you're a contender, doing everything you can to win. And if you're rebuilding, making all the moves you really need to do to clear the older players off your roster, accumulate draft picks, accumulate guys that have upside. I think that's kind of a perfect dynasty league, not a league where the league health is everybody's happy with the value of a trade going down.
That's right. And we are going to get into more distressed assets like Rashee Rice after this. You know, people always ask me, hey, what is the World Series of fantasy or the Super Bowl of fantasy football? And it's easy. It's the FFPC, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. It's a $6 million prize pool. And they've had their Never Too Early Best Ball leagues cranking since February. So the FFPC is the answer to so many questions. Hey, where's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC. That's why we partner with them. If you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, seasonal, best ball, dynasty, go to the FFPC. And don't forget, promo code Underworld to get you $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team, no matter what team it is, no matter what format it is, at the FFPC. Go do it.
As we're sitting here talking about distressed assets and if there's buying opportunity, guys, Podfather, sometimes there's secondary or second order effects of that. People are excited about Hollywood Brown on the Kansas City Chiefs. Is there anywhere he fits into the uncertainty, in air quotes, of Rashee Rice, since he is his teammate?
Yes. Well, doesn't he get a bump? Right? Don't you? But here's the thing. I'm not trying to trade for players that I don't think are particularly good anyway. I think in a perfect world, when he's deployed correctly, Marquise Brown is a field stretcher with boom best ball weeks every week. He's a possibility of going over 30, but the targets should be a target like total that I think is appropriate for a Marquise Brown in a given season is like 100 targets. Stretch the field, make room underneath for Rashee Rice. So when I saw the Marquise Brown goes to the Chiefs, I'm like, oh, that's great. That's great. He's not a target hog. And when he's deployed properly, all he's going to do is help Rashee Rice, not going to hurt him. Now, you are from RotoWire, so we're very blessed, Alan, that we have a professional fantasy news organization analyst hosting this show. So can we dig into the details for a minute on Rashee Rice before we move on? Because I think the details matter, right? When we heard that Tyreek Hill was involved in a domestic incident, well, right? Then and some of the details that came out, some of the speculation, right? About, violence in the home and things of that nature. That was terrifying, and that you could understand. Okay, the NFL is going to come down very hard on. So it was understandable. The panic around Tyreek Hill was understandable. Turns out that after an investigation and all these things, that it was found to be not as credible as the initial reports made it seem, and that's why the punishment that was feared for Tyreek Hill never ultimately came down. We'll still never know what happened. Right, we'll still never know exactly what happened with Tyreek Hill and his wife and son, but those that decided at peak fear around Tyreek Hill to just push the button and acquire a guy because he's great were paid off. And unless we're talking about a Henry Ruggs situation where you're immediately handcuffed, you're going to jail, and you're not getting out anytime soon. Typically, if you just close your eyes and push the button on what you know to be an elite talent, acquiring a distress asset at the moment of peak fear is good process.
It's buying Bitcoin or any crypto when it's falling, right? I mean, it's the same thing. Buying a stock, if Apple stock was falling, it's something you know is good, and then you run into the burning building. Isn't that like an apt comparison, Theo?
Yeah, and I think Matt kind of nailed it. If you're playing Dynasty correctly, when you have opportunities to get something for less, you pounce on it. And we really don't like once a guy reaches a certain peak, like Rashee Rice has, you really don't get opportunities unless he gets injured to buy at a discount. This is certainly not that. And we don't play Dynasty in like a very short-term mentality here at Player Profiler. Even if it's worse than Matt and I probably think in terms of the suspension, and let's say he gets 6 games, that's a blip on the radar screen when it comes to wide receivers. Wide receivers have been holding their longevity for a while. So I completely agree with Matt. I think Matt completely nailed it. Buying distressed assets, historically, it pays off more than it gets you burned.
Well, Matt Kelly, let me give you one then. So this one is, there's a lot of fear right now. If you need a tight end, is TJ Hawkinson, who's probably going to miss a lot of this year. How should dynasty managers, dynasty owners think about a top 3 tight end like him and given the situation that you might not get much this year?
Well, I've only seen TJ Hawkinson put up anything close to what I would call elite numbers with Kirk Cousins. So that's part of it, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of risk around TJ Hawkinson. Half of the risk is how is he going to perform at the new quarterback? He's never going to be the number 1 option in that passing game. The question is who's going to have the higher target share between him and Jordan Addison longer term. And now he's coming back from a catastrophic injury. A lot of risk there.
Late season.
And that's not a traditional distressed asset. Rashee Rice, more traditional. But also with Rashee Rice, it also pays to dig into the details, right? So he was involved in a major car accident, right? 6 cars at least were involved.
Presumably, which he was part of the cause of, presumably. Again, innocent until proven guilty.
And there's been allegations that there was drag racing involved.
That's the story.
Right? But no one was hurt?
So far, yeah, that's the report.
There
Keep
was
going.
Like a mild injury, I believe. I could
right. No serious injury.
Nothing serious, but I think there was one person hurt minimally.
Do we have comps of other incidents like this where there were a traffic accident and the player was found to have some culpability? Do we have that data on what the suspension was?
There was one comparison, and I know this because when I'm on Twitter, I put my Rashee Rice trade, and of course, a couple of people. There's always a couple of people on Twitter who are like annoyed you're trading for somebody who did something wrong, whatever. But somebody made a good comparison with Aldrick Rosas, who had a hit and run, but this person had previous DUIs, which Rashee Rice didn't have. The license was already suspended, was drinking, ran a red light, T-boned somebody, fled from the scene, and it was way worse than this, and he got a 4-game suspension. So, like, the NFL is not going to bring the hammer down on Rashee Rice like I think some people think, unless there's more and more things come out about this case that we don't know.
So there were, to correct the record, 1 to 4 minor injuries. I see 1 person hospitalized. I see another report of 2 people hospitalized with minor injuries, another report of 4 minor injuries. So we can't say no one was hurt. Okay, so some people were hurt. There were no major injuries, thankfully. Right? There were no major, but he was clearly doing something to be at the scene and to be, reported to be in some way culpable. It was a bad decision.
Reckless.
Oh, yeah.
It was a bad, reckless decision by someone who has a lot to lose. And that's always really frustrating when you see that, right? If you're Henry Ruggs, you lost your life, right? You cost someone their life, and then now your life is essentially ruined as well. And those are just bad decisions that people make oftentimes when they're younger. And it's not always a reflection on the person's character. It's just sometimes you're in wrong place, wrong time, wrong headspace. Remember Christian Kirk? Wasn't Christian Kirk, didn't he get arrested for throwing rocks at a cop car?
I thought that
I do not recall.
Was that Zay Jones or was it Christian Kirk? Because I remember Zay Jones had something where he was running around naked.
No, I believe that Christian Kirk, allegedly, was at a golf tournament It may have been the a sponsored by a garbage company.
Yes, you're on point with this. I just
Right,
put it on my
Waste
phone.
Management
Yep.
Open in Arizona, and somehow he was in an overpass where he was throwing rocks at cop cars, just hammered.
Oh, right. I remember.
So that was the thing that happened. Did he get suspended?
No. This was also right before he was drafted. This was 3 months before he was drafted to the NFL, though.
Right.
Didn't affect his draft capital too much.
No.
Now, I'm looking on TMZ. It says, here's the headline on TMZ from 2018. It says, Christian Kirk may have been coked up, cop says in police report.
There it is. There it is. And are there any reports that Rashee Rice was under the influence?
No, in fact, they came out and said that there's no evidence of that whatsoever so far.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
So-
here the comp I was going to make
between us, we have two big news organizations here in RotoWire and PlayerProfiler. It seems that we're getting our arms around the details here, and that it is possible that it comes out that maybe he wasn't driving, that he was just in the car. We don't have all the details, right? We don't have. Is there video of him driving?
Yes, there's a dash cam footage.
There is dash cam. He was behind the wheel.
It just says dash cam footage of the incident. It doesn't. It from what I saw, it doesn't specifically say if it's his car or the dash cam is facing his car. So it's still a little murky. A lot of details yet to come out.
Interesting. Okay, so this is interesting. So the fact that he wasn't under the influence, another good sign. I would speculate that we're talking about a 4 to 6 week ban. If not none. None is still in play. Remember, it's still a possibility that details come out or that individuals involved that are within Rashee Rice's orbit come out and volunteer to, hey, I was the driver. Right? So this happens too. Right? We're not sure who the driver was. It's unclear who the driver was. And whenever there is any famous person involved, it's never the famous person that steps forward and says, I was driving. It's always someone other than the famous person who steps forward and says, I was driving. And then you look up, and the next thing you know, it's a non-story, and someone else is being held accountable. They face a felony. It pleads down to a misdemeanor, and there's no suspension.
Funny you said that about the fall guy being the friend, because look at the Ohtani thing in baseball, right? They're blaming it on the translator. It's funny enough, Pete Rose said, I wish I had a translator in the 70s, yeah?
That's classic.
So
No fall guy. Austin is in the chat. Thanks. Austin's very active in the chat today. Austin, please don't miss a show. We love you in the chat. He's saying it's surprising that there has not been a fall guy to step forward yet. Regardless, we're talking about less than half a year, probably. That's my guess. That's my personal speculation. For a second-year receiver on the Chiefs, tethered to Patrick Mahomes for the next 3+ years, you can't mix and match. Given how deep the wide receiver position is now, how easy it is to find 12 fantasy points a game from the wide receiver position, even on the waiver wire, if not in trade, depending on the depth of your league, that's all the more reason to target Rashee Rice. Or if you have him, just don't worry about it. The last thing you want to do is trade him now before more details come out. And I mean, egg on the face. The guy that traded Rashee Rice, if it comes out and he's not suspended, if the end result is no suspension, that guy is going to be regretting that trade. So you got to watch the regret factor, right? If I trade him now at a low point, what's the odds that I regret it later? Given the details that have emerged so far, much higher possibility of regretting the trade if you get rid of him at this point before we have all the information. And we're never going to, and the thing is, though, we're never going to have all the information. That's the thing. right? We're never going to have all the information, and every day that goes by is one day removed from this story, and the NFL is going to move on. And how many people remember the Christian Kirk incident? How many people remember the Zay Jones incident? Right? I mean, these are crazy public incidents where people are naked, people are throwing rocks at police cars, and it's like, I barely remember that. Or 3% of our audience remember that Christian Kirk story. Just keep that in mind when these situations come up. Now, Deshaun Watson's a different story, right? Deshaun Watson is always going to be smeared as that guy in everyone's mind. There's going to be that smudge on his reputation forever. That's never just going to fade with time.
That's a sex crime thing. That's specific to sex crimes.
It's just one of those things, man. It's just one of those things where he's never going to live that down. That's never going to go away. He's always going to be. I mean, I think when I was thinking about distressed assets, he came to mind very quickly as sort of an evergreen distressed asset. What do you think, Theo?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to stay distressed. It's not, there's kind of no way out here. And certainly I would push back on Deshaun Watson with, if he would have come out of the suspension and played at the same level that he played with before the suspension, then it would have washed off a little bit. People would have talked a little bit more about the on-field play. But the fact that he's also been so disappointing with his on-field play, coupled with all the, the tons of allegations against him and the suspension, it's going to be forever a distressed asset. And that's the one, Matt, that you can point at and say the dynasty managers who took the opportunity to buy Deshaun Watson low due to the suspension, they sort of haven't recouped anything because they were still paying a lot at the time.
With talent comes tolerance, right? The more talent, the more tolerance you have for these things.
1,000,000%. If that's the story changes when players perform. And when they still struggle after doing something bad, then that story hangs around in the air longer. That's just the nature of the beast. We like seeing guys score fantasy points, and people like seeing guys perform well in the NFL fields.
Did you trade for Deshaun Watson at all this offseason?
No, I haven't traded for Deshaun Watson. He's never gotten to the point where he's like dirt cheap. And also, I didn't love the Jameis Winston signing. I feel like they've given themselves sort of a little bit of a parachute, having him backing up Watson, where if the play is poor, now they have a backup that, they got Joe Flacco off the street, and Joe Flacco played so well for them last year, played better than we saw fantasy-wise than Watson. And now you have a guy like Jameis Winston coming in. I think if it starts out and Deshaun Watson plays really, really poorly, which I don't think he's going to play poorly, but if he does play really, really poorly, they've got a guy that they can, put in there and at least get kind of middling production from. So I didn't love the Winston signing for
Podfather.
Love it.
Podfather, would you rather have Justin Fields or Deshaun Watson? One guy with a starting job and one guy that has a little bit of youth and some serious upside.
I just want Deshaun Watson because he has the contract.
Yeah, give me Watson.
Yeah,
but
I'll take Deshaun. We know that he has some job security. Justin Fields doesn't have any job security. If Justin Fields face plants with the Steelers,
it's over.
Then you have to give up a late first to get Justin Fields now.
Somebody offered me 112 yesterday, and I clicked no. Like I don't want to give him up for that late first. So it's more.
No, you wouldn't, right? I wouldn't either.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You can't even get him for a late first right now.
I'm not giving up Justin Fields for a pick that's going to be Brian Thomas. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here. Do you know the bust risk on Brian Thomas? It's like greater than 50%. What are we talking about? Right? Justin Fields is a hit. And not only a hit, weekly 40-point upside. Last thing I'm going to do is trade Justin Fields for Brian Thomas. Get out of here. But when it gets up to Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, JJ McCarthy in Superflex leagues, now I'm your Huckleberry. Right?
McCarthy all day.
Of course, I'm your Huckleberry. But that's the teardrop from the McCarthy, Odunze, Bowers in Superflex down to the Brian Thomas tier that cutoff right there, right from the 108 to the 109, right? The thing is, though, give your league mates an opportunity to make a mistake. If I'm at the 109, I'm not panicking because there's such a big drop. You're asking your league mates to execute a perfect draft 1 through 8 before it gets to you. So if you're at 109, 110, do not panic. I've seen so many things happen where an Odunze falls there. Someone likes a running back. Someone thinks they need a running back. So they go up and they draft whoever the first running back drafted would be at that point. Some quarterback gets buzz, right? Maybe there's a great landing spot for Michael Penix.
Penix is going to be, Penix, I think, we haven't aired it yet. We pre-recorded a Futurecast last night, and it's the first time we've done a bunch of these mock drafts on Futurecast. We had John Laube and Memphis Young of the Dynasty Warzone joining Matty Kiwoom and I, and it was the first time that Michael Penix has gone in the first round. When we did our Sonic Truth mock draft, I think Penix went like 211, but there's all these reports that Penix is going to be like the 13th pick in the NFL draft, and he had the huge pro day, so I do think he's going to end up being a guy that sneaks in some of these drafts. So you might be right about that, Matt.
If you're in Superflex, why are you taking Brian Thomas or one of these Texas receivers over Michael Penix? Not doing it. No, give me the Penix upside. I want that big Penix upside.
Would you take?
Give me
Hold
some.
on, guys.
I'm gonna wrap my hands around that big Penix upside
and pull him out of the draft.
I'm gonna pull it close to me, man, and I'm gonna hold on.
And you're gonna spray it all over the rest of the league. But
Alan, take it to the next level, man.
I walked right up to the line, man.
Yeah,
I was up to the line.
I got excited.
Jesus Christ!
Well, I came alive. I just came alive.
Give me the wide receivers, though, guys. On the record, I'll take those wideouts.
I love the Penix talk. It's great. Yep. You love it.
It reminds me of the old Joe Rogan joke. He talked about if penis enlargement pills actually worked, the first overdose would be 10 minutes after they were released.
Yeah. Well, that's right. That's right. And it's imagine one of these Texas guys lands in a best case scenario landing spot. Like there's all kinds of scenarios where you can see a league mate of yours making a mistake and then bam, you get a Bowers, you get a McCarthy, you get who knows, right? Who knows what happens at the end of the first round. So unless it's like the 112, 111, hope is starting to fade at that point. But I've seen some panic around the 109 and the 110. No, man, that's the pick I want. That's the pick I want. It's not necessarily guaranteeing any player, but you're going to be pleasantly surprised with who falls there. That's the why I like those kinds of picks.
109 is fun. I like that one, Matt. 109 is good. Like I think you're right. 109, there's some fear of 109, but 109 is going to either be a wide receiver, like you said, Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy land perfectly, or it's the RB1 if Dallas takes Trey Benson, if Dallas takes Jonathan Brooks,
yes,
or the Chargers take one of these guys, or it's going to be Michael Penix all of a sudden is drafted 13th overall with Devontae Adams and Michael Mayer and Jacoby Myers, and you're like, okay, Penix has a path here. So 109 is looking a little bit better.
What if Penix is clearly behind somebody for the like you said, Gardner Minshew or Daniel Jones? You're still gonna take him above first round wide receivers, guys?
I think that if somebody takes him that highly, he's going to get the opportunities to start, and both of the guys you named are kind of guys that he never really seem to hold it. I mean, Daniel Jones is a little different. He can't stay healthy either, but Gardner Minshew, with that like very short-term contract, he's by definition a bridge quarterback.
Yeah,
like this
the
is a guy that
Andy Dalton, right?
Yeah, he's not going to prevent me from staying off of anybody. Even last year, we thought that Gardner Minshew would start the season ahead of a 20-year-old Anthony Richardson, and Anthony Richardson took that job in the first
Well,
mini camp. So
top 5
Gardner
draft
Minshew,
capital. Yeah.
this is true. But
Yeah.
13th overall, if Michael Penix goes 13th overall, or if they have to trade up a spot or two just to get him ahead of Denver, then I think that's saying a lot for Vegas. And I think that would be, they're saying this is our guy.
Podfather, you got me thinking a lot about these distressed assets. How about performance distress? Like someone like Trey Lance in Superflex leagues, everybody needs a quarterback. Should we consider him a, quote, distressed buy low?
How are we talking about Trey Lance?
I don't see Trey Lance was just not good. Trey Lance was hurt at one point, and when he hurt his wrist and he was out for the year, you could call him a distressed asset on injury. But now it's just a bust, right? Is N'Keal Harry a distressed asset? Is Treylon Burks a distressed asset? No. So when I was talking about Deshaun Watson is an incredible example because 4 straight years with 21.5 plus fantasy points per game. QB5 or better for 4 straight years. You're telling me he forgot how to play football? You're telling me that the Browns team was that bad? Those are the only possibilities. Or he was super unlucky last year. Right? The completion percentage was down again. Like his completion percentage was in the 65% plus zone for 3 years. Then it dipped down to the 60% zone in 2022 and 2023. I don't know what's wrong with him, but we're talking about 12 total games. 12 total games. And 6 of those games last year with Cleveland, were not with great weather. It was late winter. So some of those games were not great playing conditions. And the team, had suffered injuries like Nick Chubb and others. So it would be interesting to see Deshaun Watson, another year removed from the big controversy, the big massage sex scandal, another full training camp with the expectation of him starting week 1. So for a lot of reasons, I'm gonna go ahead and buy that guy. Right? And again, it doesn't feel great because he's a scumbag, right? But there's so many scumbags in the NFL. If there were just 1 or 2, you could have a principled stand and say, I will never roster a scumbag on my team. There are enough around the league that is a highly inefficient and impossible strategy to execute, right? You're going to start crossing off way too many people on your list, and suddenly you're going to be getting beat in the playoffs by other managers that have players with something unseemly on their profile. Now, the one guy that I think fits what you're trying to talk about with Trey Lance in that there was injuries, there was underperformance, there was off the field. The guy that checks all the boxes is Jameson Williams, right?
Yeah.
I would consider that a distressed asset, right, Theo?
Yeah, I think that you nailed it. Jameson Williams is a guy that you're based on what we could get, based on his age, based on his draft capital, but we haven't seen it on an NFL field. We haven't seen those big boom weeks. That's the kind of asset to go after. And also, Matt, his situation is so good where he's in a great offense. You could see some things kind of going his way this year. I like that one. I think that's a good example.
He showed up, though, in the NFL playoffs. Remember, he had a big end-around run. So on the biggest stage when the pressure was on, I like that he didn't have those big fantasy point weeks, but he actually showed what a first-round receiver's upside.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly looks like a very talented player. He's missed so much time, but this could be the year. I mean, year 3 breakouts still happen. We saw it last year with Nico Collins, and he's this kind of guy where, you bring up Hollywood Brown. I think the upside argument for Hollywood Brown is he could score a lot of touchdowns with Patrick Mahomes. Jameson Williams could also be the touchdown guy, the big play guy for this Detroit offense. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Jameson Williams, it's time to kick the tires. This might be the last kind of cheap offseason, and it could be a big correction this year.
Yeah, so he had the torn ACL in the college football playoffs. So that throttled his production in his rookie year, where he'd have like one target a game, which was a red flag, right?
Yes.
Even coming off the ACL, that was a red flag. The low target share as a rookie was a red flag. Then the gambling scandal, right? So there's a red flag in that he's not using great judgment, right? And there are some players that they're never able to pick up on the nuances of the game. They're not devoted enough to their craft, to watching film, to spending enough time with their quarterback. And some of those little nuances that lead to targets in key situations, or when the matchup is just right and the quarterback gives the wide receiver a look, if you're not investing all that time on and off the practice field with your quarterback, you're not going to have those opportunities. That's what Amon-Ra St. Brown has with Jared Goff. That's what all the reports from Detroit say, that's what Jameson Williams is missing, right? That he's the guy that's just going to storm off the field when things aren't going well. And that longer term is the big red flag for me, is I'm not sure that this guy is fully committed to the sport. And these incidents, they're evidence of that. Okay? So I am not interested, right? I've decided that he's not good enough. And a big part of it, that rookie year with the one target a game, where you could look up and he's being used like Mecole Hardman for the rest of his career. That could Mecole Hardman's had big games.
Yeah.
Okay, he's had big games in the playoffs, Alan. So that's, I think, the most likely outcome for Jameson Williams is that. But I understand that there is a chance. Stranger things have happened. If it's Treylon Burks and you're a first rounder and you don't have all these games missed and you don't have all these ways to rationalize the disappointing production, it's over. At least with Jameson Williams, I will acknowledge it's not over. He has a chance because there are rationalizations, but it's a low percentage.
If you're scared off someone like JMO, Podfather, would you take someone that's lower down, like a couple tiers down, a little bit more boring but safe, like a Mike Williams with the Jets, or DeAndre Hopkins at age 32, or even, Quentin Johnston, who I know you hated last year, but if you want to get out of Jameson Williams, if he's just sitting there on your roster, who's a player, not a pick, because no one's giving a first. The second is like you don't want to release him for that. Who's a player that's a little more boring that you want to get out on?
Get in on? I want to do a one.
Yeah, you want to get
trade.
out on JMO, and you want to get a safer asset if you're in these leagues where. And again, you could say these players don't matter, but when you have three flexes in your league, they do matter, right? You need double-digit fantasy points from all those positions.
Yeah, if you can get 1 year of DeAndre Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins is interesting because he, as opposed to Jameson Williams, is renowned as a incredibly hard worker, super dedicated to his strength and conditioning and his film work. He's going to be working with Will Levis very closely. He's going to benefit from the development of Will Levis and the transformation of this offense from the Derrick Henry offense into this spread attack where they're investing in receiver, they're investing in satellite backs, they're upgrading the offensive line. I want exposure to this Titans offense. And one more year, like what you got from Adam Thielen last year. Adam Thielen was one of the more genius ads in Dynasty last year because he cost absolutely nothing, like zero, like a fourth rounder. And for a large swath of the season, he's an every week starter. Like that's the type of move that the guy that wins your Dynasty League every year makes. Going out and acquiring Adam Thielen in August.
Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, these are the guys, man. So, yes, that's the move. And in particular, of all those you mentioned, Mike Williams is going to a lower volume offense. There's a clear alpha there, right? I always view the Aaron Rodgers-led offenses as fake offenses because he plays so slow that he drains pass attempts from the offense. But it's possible that Tennessee is the best of all worlds, that Levis takes a step forward with his efficiency, and they play faster, and that they tilt more towards a pass-heavy offense. That's why I love all those offensive pieces in Tennessee. They're all values right now.
Yeah, Tennessee's super interesting.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Not Traylon Burks. Traylon Burks is over. Just want to make sure that's clear. If I didn't make myself clear earlier, Traylon Burks over, never happening. Would never draft him. Would never trade for him. N'Keal Harry.
I had to let go of a bunch of Traylon Burks at FFPC cut day. Like, you can't get him through the cut line. That's kind of when that sort of thing happens, then it's kind of over. And I'm in a dynasty startup now, and he went behind like Jalen Hyatt. So there's a lot of these guys with a little bit of a pulse are starting to go ahead of Traylon Burks, and the Calvin Ridley move. I mean, that nuked him a lot. Tony Pollard, that adds another guy who caught 50+ catches last year. I agree with you on Tennessee. And I'll also say, getting back to your Jameson Williams, he's also a guy that you can pivot and sort of treat him as a reroll. He's probably a guy you took very early in a rookie draft 2 seasons ago. He's still only 23 years old. I think you can roll him for one of these wide receivers that's going to fall into the second round, like Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman, a guy like that who's going to get top 45 draft capital. Somebody might like the idea of Jameson Williams ahead of him. And you certainly are going to have access to a few of these running backs that I think were a little bit higher on at Player Profiler than some people are. But I like the 2024 running back class a little bit more than some. I know Matt does as well. Like, Matt, there's a scenario where you're going to be able to roll Jameson Williams into Jalen Wright. And I think if you're going to do that, you want to trade Jameson Williams now. Trade him right now for the 205 in a super flex league. And then
I'd take Dylan Laube for Jameson Williams.
You love that guy, man. I heard you.
He's got, Long Island's finest. Dylan Laube is from Long Island, guys.
What town is he from, Theo?
So he's from West Hampton, and Dylan Laube was like that's, so that's way out east. You're practically in the Hamptons. West Hampton's like Riverhead. For anybody listening, it's Suffolk County. You're not quite in like the Montauk, like the high end Hamptons. You're in like the beginning of the beach. But he was under recruited there. Was a huge producer. Goes to New Hampshire. Does literally everything. And I'm with Matt. Dylan Laube was asked to perform as a wide receiver for several times now. He's been asked to perform wide receiver drills. He's that versatile as a receiver. I love Matt comparing him to like a Danny Woodhead type vibes. He really can catch the football. And I think based on his athletic measurables, he runs like low 4.5s. I think Dylan Laube's going to be like a 4th round pick. Everything we kind of wanted to see with Bucky Irving, that's Dylan Laube right now. So I'm with you, Matt. But I think you get more than Dylan Laube for Jameson Williams. You get one of these guys.
That's my take, though. My hot take for the quote graphics on Twitter. My hot take is I'd trade Jameson Williams for Dylan Laube straight up.
Quote it, guys.
Quote it. Put it on the board. Put it on the board. And our rookie guide is about to drop.
Yes.
And I know, where's your rookie guide? Where's your rookie guide? Our rookie guide's about to drop. It's dropping on Player Profiler very soon. If you have Dynasty Deluxe, it's part of Dynasty Deluxe. You can also buy it separately for $25. It's the best rookie guide ever that we've ever done, probably ever in the world. And these things take a few extra days to put together. So we appreciate your patience, and it's worth it. It's going to be worth it.
I have a rookie guide question. So what happened? Like, explain. Like, if you were explaining it to my grandmother, guys, what's the best 3 things about the rookie guide? Why should I go in there if I don't have Dynasty Deluxe and just buy it as an a la carte product?
I think that you're gonna love it because you're getting a multitude of rankers. You're getting my rookie rankings. You're getting Cody Carpentier's rookie rankings, Matty Kiwoom's rookie rankings, John Laube's rookie rankings, and you're also getting the rookie rankings from the undroppables, and that's a combination of Jax Falcone of the undrafted, along with Chalk, who's an really excellent ranker. Those 2 guys combined put in their rankings as well. You're also getting player write-ups from a multitude of sources. All the rankers that I just referenced are writing up a ton of players. You also get Alan Seslowsky, the Podfather. Each of these guys wrote up Keon Coleman for Alan and Dylan Laube for Matt Kelly, Josh Larkey, Ian Miller, Memphis Young. You name it. Tyler Knabel in our chat wrote up Blake Corum. You've got all these different voices from Player Profiler sharing their thoughts on prospects that they're bullish on, and it's a very clean product too. This is something where you're going to be able to keep keep it open during your rookie drafts or print it out, and the graphics are next to none. It's a beautiful graphic. The cover is fantastic. Shout out to Jason Allwine, who's
I should buy it for the cover. Is that what you're saying? I should buy it for the cover.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Buy it, Alan. You buy it because we have the best rankings in the business. You buy it because it's the best pairing of written analysis with statistics, comps, everything in one package, in one snapshot, unlike any other.
I can read it on the toilet though, right? Because I'm looking for good toilet material.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you can read it on the toilet, Alan. You can read it in your car. Like I'm guessing you're doing a lot of toilet reading, maybe like parking lot reading when you're waiting for stuff. Not sure, Alan. Not sure when you're getting your reading done.
But it is Podfather. It is a standalone product if I don't have Dynasty Deluxe.
Correct. You'll just want to buy Dynasty Deluxe because one is $40, the other's $25. For the extra $15, you might as well just go get Dynasty Deluxe. But yes, it is available for purchase separately as well. We have some great sponsors in there. So Dynasty Depot, Keep Trade Cut, FFPC, Underdog. I mean, we, best in the business, partner with Player Profiler, and we're very grateful. And wrap this up. When you look at players that are suspended, right? Let's make sure that they at least have a baseline level of talent, at least a Calvin Ridley or maybe sub-Calvin Ridley. Who's a player that was suspended that was the next level down from Calvin Ridley?
JMO. You said it before.
Okay, let's take Jameson Williams as the baseline. If you're Jameson Williams or better, okay, the positive return you get from investing in a distressed asset, what is the hit rate on positive versus negative returns investing in distressed assets historically? Let's say the last 10 years. The last 10 years, if you saw that a player was intersecting with law enforcement in some way, there either was a projected suspension or the suspension comes down, if you just went forward and traded for Calvin Ridley, right? What is the hit rate on that? At what's the percentage of time, 1 out of 100, they're going to be happy you did that?
I would say probably a little less than half, but when it hits big.
Yeah, okay, I think that's about right. I mean, there's guys with off-field incidents that teams will move on from. I think that's like kind of a little bit of the variable is does it make these guys a little less appealing to their teams long term and their situation would therefore change? But I think Matt, I think you nailed it. Like I think it's a better than 50% bet to take on the risk.
You think better? I think worse than 50%. But like you said, I'll use a Podfather term. It does have asymmetrical upside here. If Deshaun, I was able to get Deshaun Watson for a single first round pick to somebody who was just done with him after he got hurt last year, right? That is an outlier. So even if I paid a first and a second, but can he become a top 14, 15 dynasty superflex quarterback again? I'm banking on it, right? So that's asymmetrical upside, to use your term, Podfather.
Well, I'll point out one, Alan, like, so you're less than 50%. Are you looking at the guys like the Justin Blackmans, the Josh Gordons? Those
the
guys
Martavis
count.
Bryants.
Those, yeah, but like the Blackman and Gordon, they had like the substance abuse issues and stuff like that. If we take substance abuse away from the distressed assets, then I think it becomes a much better bet. You're talking about like the Tyreek Hills and now currently the Rashee Rices, because I think the hit rate goes,
Antonio Brown at his worst, right?
Yeah, Antonio Brown was getting a little crazy.
So mental health, you're out.
No, guys, no. These are distressed assets, period. That's why that there's maybe even a sub 50% hit rate. The beauty of asymmetrical upside is you could hit on 45% of these guys, 40% of these guys, but because the upside is Tyreek Hill, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. Even if, more often than not, you're going to drop him in a year or two, it's typically worth it. Close your eyes, push the button. Do you consider Justin Fields distressed?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Major.
Okay.
He was just traded for a day 3 throwaway pick from an NFL team. It doesn't get more distressed than that.
Justin Fields, you're looking for the Baker Mayfield path, where people were kind of giving up on him, and then he gets an opportunity. That you're looking at the Baker Mayfield path. He's
Right.
certainly beat up. That the draft capital was the trade that Pittsburgh made for Justin Fields was catastrophic for his dynasty value. Seeing that an NFL team could get him for a 6th rounder was about as sobering as it gets for like the Justin Fields truthers and people that are very, very bullish on him. That was like the worst thing for him. So
right, it could be he could turn in. You're hoping for Baker Mayfield as far as like a comeback, but it could end up being Sam Darnold, guys, where he was traded for a top 5 pick or top, a lottery pick, so to speak, was traded away for a couple day 2 picks and then just never returns to any relevance. That is the downside. But I mean, I heard you talking about this, Podfather, on your Mound and Mansion, that any week that Fields is starting, right, he's going to be inside your top 12, top 14 superflex quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So even if you get a couple starts out of it.
And he's young, and he's going to be around for a long time. Talk about Gardner Minshew. Is he better than Gardner Minshew?
For fantasy, I think
For
so.
fantasy,
Is he better than Jacoby Brissett?
For fantasy. But the NFL teams are scared. I mean, it's the guy takes all these sacks, and the guy was 10-28 as a starter. At the end of the day, we love him in fantasy, but the market kind of said what they think about him. And all these teams sort of passed up on him. You talk about Vegas, how we're talking about how Vegas is going to use the 13th overall pick for Michael Penix. They could have traded a 3rd rounder and gotten Justin Fields before like this whole, madness with the free agents. And then I don't know. I'm scared to death, but I certainly would take a Justin Fields on my dynasty roster if I could get him super cheap, because exactly what you guys said, even if he doesn't become a long-term starter, he has so much contingent upside in the weeks that he does get starts for me, because we've seen him put up, multiple 30-point weeks and, week winning performances. Even this past season, he had those 2 back-to-back games with 4 touchdown passes this season. So I don't know. I'm scared to death long-term, but again, I'll take him on my roster.
Podfather, do you want to put a bow on this? Because we got some other things I want to talk about in the distress area. So if you have anything final to say.
Worst case is he's Cam Newton on the Patriots, right?
There we go.
Where they acquire a mobile quarterback with big play upside, 40-point fantasy upside, but the league has figured him out as a passer, and it's not going to work, right? It took many, many years for the league to figure out Cam Newton, and then they did. He also didn't develop, right? He didn't put the work in to develop his game either, so he did himself no favors. Justin Fields, very young. There's been a long list of players that had to move before they could break out. Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins. Yes, there's also Marcus Mariota. He could very easily be Marcus Mariota, a faster, more explosive version of Marcus Mariota. That's in his range of outcomes as well. But Marcus Mariota wasn't putting up the kind of numbers he was putting up in Chicago. And in Chicago, the offensive line was worst in the league in his, 2 years ago. Everything's been improving, but no one would say, oh, this is, a top 10 situation in the league. That he has not been in a great situation, but the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted Broderick Jones last year. He was developmental, and this is the year that Broderick Jones is supposed to make a big step forward. The offensive line, the investments there should come to fruition this year. The growth and development of George Pickens, the growth and development of Pat Freiermuth, it's all right there for him, right? We can all close our eyes and we can envision a best case scenario for Justin Fields. Josh Allen also was really bad for 2 years. Justin Fields better than Josh Allen through 2 years. But the difference is the Bills didn't give up on Josh Allen the way the Bears gave up on Justin Fields. But also, I would ask you, what if the Bills had the 101 heading into Josh Allen's 3rd year? Would they have given up on Josh Allen? and drafted whoever that was that year? Right? Would they have given up on Josh Allen and drafted Trevor Lawrence?
Well, they like you said, they traded away their first pick, but had they hypothetically had it, right? That's when you're faced with a guy that's he's going to need to be paid the following year, and you have the 101, everything lined up against Justin Fields. I think that he was a victim of circumstance, so to speak.
And around the league, these teams have to be prepared and ready and have planned for a young quarterback to come in and be the new future of the franchise. It's possible they made a lot of phone calls and everyone was like, we've already made other plans. It's too late. We already have our draft board set up. Like, we know what we want to do as a franchise. There may have just been very few potential trade partners. So it could have just been a supply and demand problem.
Kyler Murray was the 101 the year after the Josh Allen draft.
Right. What about 2 years after the Josh Allen draft?
In 2020, that's the Trevor Lawrence.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Just, this is how, see the mechanics here? The mechanics up here, right here, Alan?
It's the Joe Burrow draft. That was the Joe Burrow draft. Sorry
Even better.
That. Yeah.
Even better. Even better. So let's say that the Bills had the 101 in the Joe Burrow draft. Would they have traded Josh Allen to the Steelers and drafted Joe Burrow, or stuck with Joe Burrow and traded, or stuck with Josh Allen and traded down?
Joe Burrow.
I don't know the answer. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what they were saying behind the scenes. Maybe the coaches behind the scenes were like, this Josh Allen is going to go nuclear next year. He was unlucky. He's been developing at a fast pace. I'm so excited for him. The league better watch out for Josh Allen. We know it inside the organization. The others don't know it, but these analytics guys, they are gonna be sorry they ever faded Josh Allen because of all these inefficiencies. Whereas the guys in Chicago are saying, Justin Fields can't play. As it turns out, he puts up some big weeks, especially as a runner, but he has fundamental flaws as a passer that we believe are unfixable. I don't know. I don't know, but all I know is that we don't know what would have happened in year 3 of Josh Allen had he been traded from Buffalo. And we don't know if Buffalo, had they had the 101, would have traded the pick or traded Allen.
He needs Russell Wilson to struggle. I mean, that's the bottom line, because I think they're going to give the job to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson had 26 touchdown passes, only 8 interceptions last year. He seems kind of rejuvenated by this move. Mike Tomlin seems to want Russell Wilson to be the guy. So you really need like Russell Wilson to start the year like 2-5, and then you'll see a Justin Fields. I think that's the path.
Yep. Can an asset be distressed, guys, if by landing spot? So like players that haven't even stepped on an NFL field. And specifically what I mean is, we've been digging into stuff since December, January, February, and we have, Rome Odunze is going to be the wide receiver 3. You want pick 5, pick 6, pick 7, the latest. But Podfather, what if he ends up on the Jets and he's basically right off the bat the 3rd wide receiver, at best the 2nd?
That would be bad.
Brock Bowers, same thing.
We have breaking news, and I think we have to announce this. Stefon Diggs is now a Houston Texan. It's being reported. The Bills are sending.
What did I say?
Per Adam Schefter. Per Adam Schefter.
What did I say on this show?
Matt
what
Kelly.
Did I say on this
Matt
show
Kelly
about Nico
was
Collins?
The,
what did
the
I
Nico
say?
Collins fade.
What did I say about Nico Collins?
You said that Houston's going to add another wide receiver, and they tried.
I said Houston is not nearly as happy with their wide receiver room as you think they are. That's what I said on this show. I said, watch what happens in free agency and the NFL draft. They are going to add a receiver. Did I think they're going to add a receiver of the caliber of Stefon Diggs? Absolutely not.
He was kind of bad last year at the end of last year, though. Remember, he started off hot, guys, and then he was actually a drag on your lineup. So is it toast or just the bad situation last year?
I think this is a rejuvenating situation for Diggs. There was some beef with the coaching staff last offseason. Starts the year well, then the change in offensive coordinator midseason. He didn't play well to end the year. I agree with you, Alan, but he's still going to play with CJ Stroud on an offense that was so successful through the air last year and a quarterback that elevated multiple wide receiver talents. It's certainly a lifeline for Stefon Diggs, and Podfather gets a hat tip. Podfather got this one right. They tried trading for Keenan Allen. They offered a third-round pick for Keenan Allen, a 2025 third. They were turned down. I was a little surprised that they were turned down for that one because it was, the whole third rounder versus fourth rounder thing, but whatever. I'm not sure what they gave up for Stefon Diggs. Probably a little bit more than they would have had to give up for Keenan Allen would be my guess. But crazy. I love that we get the on-air reaction too from Matt nearly falling out of his chair.
Well, because I said the one player is being drafted, top 30 in all formats that I would never draft, not once, not ever, because he can't hurt me, right? He can't hurt me by avoiding him, right? If you have 0 Nico Collins, it's not going to hurt you. That's what I said. I said he's the one guy in best ball I'm happy having 0 in my portfolio, and I would never touch him in Dynasty. Oh my God, radioactive.
Podfather, make a prediction, and then Theo right after him.
Oh my God.
What do you think the draft pick compensation is going to be for Diggs? Either of you can chat it.
A third and a fifth.
Podfather?
Oh, God. Definitely a third.
Houston, I'll say without even looking at it, the max is Houston has that extra second round pick from the trade they made with Minnesota. That's probably the max. But I think they offered the 2025 third for Keenan Allen. Stefon Diggs, I think the trade market obviously is going to be a little higher for him, a little bit younger, and has had these multiple seasons. I'd say third and a fourth, maybe.
It says right here, this dude in the chat right here, Gerard, I don't know what his source is. It says per UD. I don't know what's UD. It says there's a second round pick involved here.
Yeah, I think my guess would be a 2025 second even. That's
what it says. It says a 2025 second, and then Diggs comes along with a fifth and a sixth.
Jared Dean's in a lot of our chats, and he's definitely I would say he's going to be accurate if he's putting this in the chat. 2025 second. This gives Buffalo guys. I think the big takeaway from this is we're trying to circle and try to figure out who's the 105 in our rookie drafts. The Buffalo Bills are going to draft a wide receiver in the first round, and now they have extra ammunition to do so.
Right, but it's Adonai Mitchell, someone like that.
Whoever Buffalo drafts,
right?
But that player is going to be a rocket ship to the moon because now they have a path for wide receiver 1 land as a rookie.
Perfect tie-in to what we just said. So, guys, I just said Rome Odunze lands in New York, and Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, lands in Buffalo.
Oh, God.
What are you going to do when you're on the clock at 105 and you don't want Brock Bowers?
You're not taking any of these guys over Brock Bowers.
Let's just say it's a non-premium format.
It doesn't matter. You can't.
Okay,
that would be a mistake. To take
Bowers is off the board. That was not the point of the question. The point of the question was elite level prospect, bad landing spot, okay level prospect, or not as good as Rome Odunze lands in the good spot. Now you're on the clock. This is information that I need because when I'm on the clock here, this is always a dilemma.
It's a good question. And the answer is Odunze is that good. Right? Odunze is that good. And we talked about the comps with this class versus the 2014 wide receiver class. He's the Sammy Watkins of this draft class, right? Where Sammy Watkins was the first wide receiver off the board. Was it Mike Evans? Was it Odell Beckham? No, it actually wasn't, right? So in a good way, where Sammy Watkins gave you years and what could have been with Sammy Watkins. If Sammy Watkins invested more in the sport, who knows what he could have been? Anyone that watched him at Clemson knows that he could have been, a Julio Jones level producer in the league. Just didn't, that's not what he wanted, right? Clearly. So Odunze has that level, if not higher. He was a much more prolific producer in college than Sammy Watkins, a better athlete than Sammy Watkins, So Odunze is a box stuffing elite level talent.
Big
so
time.
that's where the cutoff is. If we're talking about another draft class like a couple of years ago, where it's a whole bunch of guys, it's Laube and it's Garrett Wilson and it's Drake London, and it's guys that produced, right? They had great profiles, but one guy's a senior coming out, one guy is not running and not working out, right? We're worried about his ability to separate for whatever reason. There's legitimate concerns. Like we have these draft classes where all the wide receivers have some kind of concern around them, right? This is not that draft class. The beauty of this draft class is it's the rare class where there's 3 can't miss guys, where any given year, Odunze or Neighbors is the wide receiver 1 lock.
Would Odunze have been drafted over JSN last year?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Last year was the perfect example. We had all these wide receivers with question marks. None of them made it in the top 10. Now we've got 3 guys that are probably going top 10. We saw this last time we saw this was what? Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Smith?
Yes.
Right? This is a better class than that. It's a better big 3 than those guys.
Yeah. I think that the better question is, Alan, would Odunze have been drafted ahead of Drake London and Garrett Wilson? And I think he would have. I think he would have as well.
Absolutely. Like I've said, that's what I'm saying. He's a tier above those level prospects. And we're going to be rolling out the breakout finder very soon. It's coming just as soon as Apple approves the update. And you're going to see the difference. That's the perfect tool to the breakout finder app to be able to see, level of prospect. And then I bring up Sammy Watkins for a bunch of reasons. He was also, top 5 all time in the breakout finder, right? And he did break out at the NFL level. He had a 1,000-yard season, right? So he was pretty can't miss. Then sometimes, once in a while, the NFL gets it wrong where there is a can't miss guy like this. This level prospect exists, and he's not the number 1 wide receiver off the board. We saw that happen with CeeDee Lamb. That was inexplicable. I remember coming on this show many times insisting that there was a teardrop between Lamb and the rest of the receivers, like Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. Like, what are we talking about? There's a chasm between those guys. The NFL got it all kinds of wrong. Sounds like the NFL has this class all kinds of right.
I got a little tangent question for you, and if you don't like this one, just swat it away. Is the Apple a pain in the ass to deal with that kind of stuff? Because they are under a major class, or not a class action, but a lawsuit from the Attorney General, right? I mean, for the monopolistic powers and all that stuff. So do you have a lot of trouble dealing with them when you talk about updates to the Breakout Finder?
They want you in their app store so they can generate money. Without the app developers, there is no app store. Okay? I mean, they have their own apps, and they certainly have apps that they would just as soon not be in the app store because they compete with their apps, and that's a big part of this lawsuit. Right? The big part of this lawsuit is some of the techniques that they use to degrade the user experience of apps that compete with Apple apps.
And take a third of your money.
Spotify has complained about this with Apple Music versus Spotify. Right? So those are some legitimate concerns. As an app developer, I just wish that there was some consistency in the speed of approval, where sometimes it's 6 hours, sometimes it's 6 days. You never know. That's all I would ask for from Apple, and they are strict. But I will say that we had a great experience getting the Fast Draft app approved. It's all approved with Apple. Less so with Google Play, so we're not yet approved with Google Play. Luckily, Fast Draft is still a few weeks away, so we have plenty of time to get it approved. But Apple has been better to work with recently than Google, but it also just depends on the app, right? It could be like Google is more of a pain in the ass about anything adjacent to gambling, where if it's just a purely informational app with in-app purchases, okay, Apple's more of a pain in the ass in that scenario. Either way, anyone that's worked with Google and Apple as an app developer will tell you that they are a pain in the ass. And that if there was more competition, that it would be easier And right now, the problem is there's no incentive for anyone to make it better, give you better rates, right? The what they charge, the percentage take on these apps and the in-app purchases is too high. Even for small developers, it's too high.
The third, right?
Well, not for small developers. For bigger companies, yes, 30%, and then they drop it to a couple different alternative levels for smaller developers. So thankfully, we don't pay that higher rate, but still, it's still too high. So yeah, if you had 3 or 4 or 5, 6 choices, you'd have, better apps in the App Store at a better value. That is capitalism.
Yeah. Well, they say anyone here that has an iPhone, basically there's a 95% chance that their next upgrade is going to be an iPhone. Like when you look at other countries like China, it's 50% because switching over is so easy. Whereas here it's not easy, because
the number one reason that is, right?
Is it the WeChat app they have in China?
Well, the number one reason is because they treat SMS messaging differently internationally.
That's what like the WhatsApp stuff, right? You're talking about.
So in all other countries, every text message is a charge. So that's why they don't use the text messaging app at all. They use WeChat or
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, those kinds of applications. And I mentioned this yesterday on the Mind of Mansion show. If you have a bunch of international people in your league, you should definitely set up a WhatsApp group to let people know that you have players on the block, and it helps to spur people. Because the game I play is, how do I coax the rabbit closer to me, right? How do I get the guy that has Rashee Rice to send me an offer so that I'm not sending cold offers? I do everything I can with chat and text and bulletin boards and updating my who's on the block to see if I can get my league mates to send me a cold offer. Then I can respond. I much prefer to respond to an initial offer than to make the initial offer. But yeah, that is the number one reason. If you're on Apple and you're texting with someone who's not on Apple, they're green and there's fewer features. Like you can't send them as many emojis. You can't do some of these effects. So there's a totally degraded user experience if you're texting someone who's on an Android versus an iPhone. And that is very much unique to the United States because we use that built-in native text message app so much more here than they do internationally.
Yeah. I could talk about that stuff for hours. I know that I didn't mean to bore you, Theo, but I'm always interested. I knew Podfather has a take.
That's it, guys. When the Diggs trade went down, immediately I was thinking about SMS texts and apps.
Yep. All right.
The bottom line on Diggs, though, the bottom line on Diggs is DeAndre Hopkins, rinse, repeat, right? This is a guy you want, a guy in his early 30s. Remember, the dip in production last year correlated with a back injury. So the speculation was that he was playing with a back injury last year, and that my guess is when I see these kinds of trades, I attribute it more to friction between the front office and the player and the agent than I do a concern over production, right? Because he's still 30 years old, and Stefon Diggs has one of those elegant, smooth operator type games where he doesn't need explosive downfield ability. He just is a technician. He gets open. He squeezes the football, much like Keenan Allen, much like DeAndre Hopkins. These guys will typically play well into age 31, 32, 33, as we saw last year with Adam Thielen, as we've seen in previous years with players like Larry Fitzgerald. So I think it's going to be the Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell show. I think this affects Tank Dell much less. Tank Dell is an established alpha who plays all over the field. He can be moved inside now. They can play him outside. They played him outside as a field stretcher, and he was productive as a field stretcher last year, which is such a compliment because typically you park a guy like that outside who's undersized. He's just going to use his speed to open up people underneath. No, he was commanding targets down the field on the perimeter at that size as a rookie. That was so impressive, much more impressive than anything Nico Collins has ever done, right? Nico Collins was just putting up the same production in the same role as Noah Brown in a similar situation. So get out of here with Nico Collins again. Right now I have the information, right? When I made this exact call 2 months ago, we didn't know this was going to happen. I just imagined it would, and then it did, and now we're here. And I'm buying Diggs, and I think you could put offers out for Tank Dell and see if you can steal Tank Dell off the backs of this. And fortunately, we've already told everybody to get out of Nico Collins, so hopefully no one has any Nico Collins to worry about. If you have him, RIP.
Theo, I drafted Nico Collins over Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith about a month ago in a Dynasty League. Is there any chance this affects take the counterpoint of what Matt said? That's really what I'm asking to do. Is there a way where Nico thrives and this affects the other pass catchers?
I mean, Nico's path now is way more touchdown dependent than it was before Stefon Diggs landed there. I mean, your argument for Nico Collins is he's still the big, strong, winner in the end zone. But I tend to agree with Matt. It beats up Nico Collins a ton. It certainly limits his target upside. It was sort of a perfect storm of production. I agree to an extent that Tank Dell, if I can buy him cheap, I'm looking to get him. He was outstanding as a rookie. That absolutely matters. But I think that it limits both of those players' target ceilings. Stefon Diggs is going to show up and call it 120 targets. I don't think this is Stefon Diggs coming in being a 150 target guy and coming in and just being that level of alpha. But I think 125 targets sounds about right in a balanced offense, and it limits the other two guys a lot. So it's a huge win for CJ Stroud.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it just at the end of the day, it's like we can try to identify the wide receiver winner, but the winner is CJ Stroud because they've gone out, and what a smart franchise. They go out and they get Joe Mixon to replace Devin Singletary. I think we can agree that Joe Mixon, even a 28-year-old Joe Mixon, is an upgrade.
He's a professional running back. He's a professional running back, yeah.
They get Joe Mixon, and then they go get Stefon. They trade out of the first round, get an additional second. Then they use a second rounder from 2025 to go get Stefon Diggs. This is a fantastic franchise that is in a great position to make a deep playoff run this year. And I think that CJ Stroud just to the moon with this addition.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And they re-signed Dalton Schultz. Everything is there for CJ Stroud to.
Well, Dalton Schultz is going to struggle to be a top 15 fantasy tight end now.
100%. He gets
this is bad for Nico Collins and bad for Dalton Schultz. I mean, Dalton Schultz has always been a guy that has average athleticism, good hands, but when he's called upon in big moments, like in the playoffs for the Cowboys, he's not able to get upfield. He's not able to get out of bounds when he needs to. He's not able to drag his foot when he needs to. He just short circuits because, again, he's not an elite level talent. And when a non-elite level talent starts to face huge target competition, they wilt every time. So that's just two guys I would have absolutely nothing to do with before, and certainly nothing to do with now. And it's interesting, Joe Mixon, once upon a time, a distressed asset. Joe Mixon, once upon a time, had major intersections with law enforcement. There was a video of him punching a woman in a restaurant. Okay? So this is why the number of these guys, the number of scumbags that are playing in the NFL and producing fantasy points is higher than you might think. And so this is not the hobby for you if you're going to lead with your morality. You're going to have to consider drafting, trading for, starting players that have had some bad decision in their life, hurt people in their life, intersections with law enforcement in their life. That's the sport, right? That's football, right? Football is a gladiator spectacle. They don't go into society and pluck out the kindest, nicest people to play the NFL. That's not how it works. Okay? And yes, CJ Stroud, question I have for you, Alan, Do you think you're going to see some CJ Stroud 101s in Superflex startups?
People were looking for an excuse to do it, so my prediction is yes.
Get ready for it. Get ready for it. I hope. Are you ready? Are you ready, Theo?
I'm ready. I'm still Josh Allen, guys. I can't.
I know. I know you are. I know you are.
Yes.
But I just want everyone be ready. Everyone, just hold on. Grab whatever. Is it a desk? Is it your steering wheel? Is it your chair? Whatever. Is it a loved one? Right? Whatever. Whoever it is. Just everyone, hold on right now and get ready for CJ Stroud 101. Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free, and one of our key missions is to make as much statistics and information and deep analysis available on PlayerProfiler.com for free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all this possible. If you can't do All In, that's okay. We have a draft kit. Or you can just subscribe to the player rankings. Those now include tight end premium FFPC ranks, our brand new data analysis package will blow your hair back. And of course, there's our Dynasty Deluxe and our DFS Dominator. Take a moment, check out our premium services to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.